An Introduction to Adapted Physical Education and Sport, or PED 415, Adapted Physical Activity. Adapted physical education and sport programs relate to the unique needs and abilities of individuals, which vary quite widely. What is not often known is that individuals with disabilities involved in physical activity and sport achieve many goals that many would think impossible. For example, Heinz Free, Switzerland, and John Driscoll in USA attained record times in the Boston Marathon of 1 hour 21 minutes and 23 seconds and 1 hour 34 minutes and 22 seconds, respectively, using wheelchairs. Jim Abbott, a pitcher for the New Yankees born without a right hand, pitched a no-hitter against Cleveland Indians in 1993. Wilma Rudolph, despite birth defects and polio, was a triple gold medalist in the 100-meter, 200-meter, and 400-meter relays in the 1960s Olympics in Rome. Tom Dempsey, born with only half a right foot, set a National Football League record in 1970 for the longest field goal kicked, 63 yards. Casey Martin, with a serious impairment of his leg associated with the Kipple-Trenny-Weber syndrome, gained fame as a gifted golfer. These examples demonstrate what can be attained if opportunities are provided. Individuals who pursue a career of teaching physical education, coaching sports, typically enjoy physical activity and are active participants in physical education and athletics. However, they often don't become knowledgeable about adaptive physical education and sport until they prepare for their careers. With increased awareness, they realize that people with unique needs might exhibit abilities ranging from very low to extremely high, as the opening examples illustrate. As they gain experience, students begin to appreciate that there are individuals with a variety of unique needs involved in adaptive physical education and sport. They learn that those with unique needs include people with and without disabilities. If physical education and sport opportunities are offered in educational institutions and other societal entities, they must be made available to all students, including those with disabilities. It is neither desirable nor permissible to discriminate on the basis of disability in regard to these opportunities. Adaptive physical education and sport has evolved as a field to meet the unique physical education and sport needs to individuals. This chapter, and what we're talking about now, introduces the reader to adaptive physical education and sport. The meaning of the meaning of adaptive physical education. Because different people use different terms and different definitions of the same term, we first should clarify the definition of adaptive physical education. Adaptive physical education is an individualized program involving physical and motor fitness, fundamental motor skills and patterns, skills in aquatics and dance, and individual and group games and sports designed to meet the unique needs of individuals. Typically, the word adapt means to adjust or to fit. In this meaning, the word adapt is consistent with these definitions and includes the modification to meet unique needs of students. It encompasses traditional components associated with adaptive physical education, including those designed to correct, habilitate, or remediate. Adaptive physical education is viewed as a subdiscipline of physical education that provides for safe, personally satisfying, and successful experiences for students of differing abilities. Adaptive physical education is generally designed to meet long-term, more than 30 days, unique needs. Those with long-term unique needs include individuals with disabilities as specified in the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. According to IDEA, a child with a disability means a child having having a cognitive delay or an intellectual disability, deafness or other hearing impairment, speech or language impairment, blindness or other visual impairment, serious emotional disturbance or orthopedic impairment, autism spectrum disorder, traumatic brain injury, a learning disability, deafblindness, or multiple disabilities or other health impairments that require special education and related services. The term child with a disability for a child aged 3 to 9 years may, at the discretion of the state and the local educational agency, include a child experiencing developmental delays as defined by the state and as measured by appropriate diagnostic instruments and procedures in one or more of the following areas. That would be physical development, cognitive development, communication development, social or emotional development, or adaptive development, and who, by reason thereof, needs special education and related services. Adaptive physical education might also include infants and toddlers, individuals under 3 years of age who are early intervention services because, one, they are experiencing developmental delays in cognitive development, physical development, communication development, social or emotional development, or adaptive development. Or two, they have a diagnosed physical or intellectual disability that has a higher probability of resulting in developmental delay. As a state's discretion, adaptive physical education or activity might also include at-risk infants and toddlers. The term at-risk infant or toddler means an individual under 3 of age who would be at risk of experiencing a substantial developmental delay if early intervention services were not provided. Adapted physical education may include individuals with disabilities as encompassed within Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and its amendments. Section 504 defines a person with a disability as anyone who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities, has a record of such impairment, or is regarded as having such an impairment. Although every child who is a student with a disability under IDEA is also protected under Section 504. All children covered under 504 are not necessarily students with a disability under IDEA. Individuals with disabilities who do not need or require services under IDEA are nonetheless entitled to accommodations and services that are necessary to enable them to benefit from all programs and activities available to students without disabilities. Adapted physical education may include students who are not identified by a school district as having a disability under federal legislation, but who might have unique needs that call for specially designed program. This group might include students restricted because of injuries or other medical conditions, those of low fitness, including exceptional leanness or obesity, inadequate motor development, or low skill, or those individuals with poor functional posture. These individuals might require individually designed programming to meet unique goals and objectives. According to IDEA, students aged 3 to 21 with disabilities must have an individualized education program, or an IEP, developed by a planning committee. In developing an IEP, physical education needs must be considered, and the IEP developed might include specially designed instruction in physical education. IDEA also requires the development of an Individualized Family Service Plan, or IFSP, for infants and toddlers with disabilities. Although physical education services are not mandated for this group, they may be offered as a part of an IFSP in accordance with the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and its amendments. It is recommended that an accommodation plan be developed by a school-based assessment team to provide services and needed accommodations for individuals with disabilities. Although not covered or required by federal law, an individualized physical education program should also be developed by a planning committee for those who have unique need but have not been identified by the school as having a disability. Each school should have policies and procedures to guide the development of an individualized programs. More specific information in the development of programs and plans is presented later. Consistent with least restrictive environment concept associated with IDEA, adaptive physical education may take place in classes that range from integrated, i.e. regular education environments, to segregated, i.e. including only individuals receiving adaptive physical education. Although adaptive physical education is a program rather than a placement, it should be understood that a program received is directly influenced by placement, the setting in which it is implemented. Whenever appropriate, students receiving an adapted physical education program should be included in regular physical education environments. Although an adapted physical education program is individualized, it can be implemented in a group setting and should be geared to each student's needs, limitations, and ability. Adaptive physical education should emphasize an active program of physical activity, rather than a sedentary alternative program. The program should be planned to attain the benefits of physical activity through meeting the needs of students who might otherwise be relegated to passive experiences associated with physical education. In establishing adaptive physical education programs, educators work with parents, students, teachers, administrators, and professionals in various disciplines. Adaptive physical education may employ developmental, bottom-up, community-based, functional, top-down, or other orientations that might employ a variety of teaching styles. Adaptive physical education takes place in schools and other agencies responsible for educating individuals. Although adaptive physical education is educational, it draws on related services. More on related services later. Adaptive physical education and sport are viewed as a part of the emerging area of study known as adapted physical activity, and that is what this course is called, a term that encompasses the comprehensive and interdisciplinary study of physical activity for the education, wellness, and sport participation and leisure of individuals with unique needs. Adapted physical activity encompasses the total lifespan, whereas adaptive physical education focuses only on the ages 0 to 21. In this class, we will work with all individuals, and so we will be looking at adapted physical activity. Although adaptive physical education may exceed the minimal time required by policy or law, it should not be supplemented by relative services, intramural sport days, athletics, or other experiences that are not primarily instructional. Adapted sport refers to sport modified or created to meet the unique needs of individuals with disabilities. Adapted sport may be conducted in integrated settings in which individuals with disabilities interact with participants without disabilities, or in segregated environments that include only individuals with disabilities. Based on this definition, for example, basketball is a regular sport and wheelchair basketball is an adapted sport. Goalball, a game created for individuals with visual impairments in which players attempt to roll a ball that emits a sound across their opponent's goal, is an adapted sport because it was created to meet unique needs. Adaptive sports encompasses disability sport or deaf sport, which typically focuses on segregated participation in regular or adapted sport. Although disability sport terminology has been used as a term encompassing sport related to individuals with disability, adapted sport terminology is preferred for the following reasons. It is consistent with terminology in adaptive physical education and adaptive physical activity. It focuses on the modification of sport rather than on the disability. It encourages participation in the most normal and integrated environment. It is consistent with the normalization theory. It promotes the creation of sport opportunities, and it provides an opportunity for the pursuit of excellence in sport throughout a full spectrum of settings for participation. This orientation to adaptive sport is consistent with the sport integration continued presented in this figure that I'm about to go over. So basically, the more restrictive a sport is, the more regular it will be, and the less restrictive it is, the more it is adapted sport segregated. So you have to loosen the restrictions for adapted sport, and the least restrictive would be adapted sport segregated, be only individuals with disabilities, and then it would be adapted sport integrated, and then it would be regular and adapted sport, and then it would be regular sport with accommodation, and then it would be regular sport. Adapted sport programs are conducted in diverse environments and organizational patterns for a variety of purposes. Educational programs are generally conducted in schools and include intramural, extramural, and interschool activities. Intramural activities are conducted within schools, involve only pupils enrolled at that school, and are organized to serve the entire school population. Extramural sport activities involve participation of pupils from 2 or more schools and are sometimes conducted as play days or sport days at the end of instructional or intramural sessions. Interschool sports involve competition between representatives from 2 or more schools and offer enriched opportunities for selected and more highly skilled individuals. Adapted sport activity might be conducted for leisure or recreational purposes within a formal, open, or unstructured programs, or as a part of a lifestyle of individuals or groups, or for wellness, medical, or therapeutic reasons. For example, sport or adapted sport might be used as a part of a recreational therapy, corrective therapy, sport therapy, or wellness program. In general, involvement in sport or adapted sport has several purposes. An important step in providing a good adaptive physical education or activity program is planning. A plan provides the direction of the program and includes identifying its purpose, aims, goals, and objectives. The purpose of a program should be consistent with the mission of its organization and with the regular or general physical education or sport program available for individuals without disabilities, with and without disabilities. It will be assumed that the purpose of adaptive physical education is to promote self-actualization, which in turn promotes optimal personal development and contributes to the whole of society. This purpose is consistent with the humanistic philosophy interpreted by Sherrill, who says that humanism is a philosophy that pertains to helping people become fully human, thereby actualizing their potential for making the world the best possible place for all forms of life. The physical education and sport program aims to produce physically educated individuals who live active and healthy lifestyles that enhance their progress towards self-actualization. The National Association for Sport and Physical Education, or NASPE, has developed 6 content standards to reflect what the physically educated individual should know and do. The development of a physically educated individual is accomplished through experiences associated with goals and objectives related to psychomotor, cognitive, and affective domains of learning. In this paradigm, program goals are accomplished by development of and through the psychomotor domain. Education of the psychomotor domain is represented by solid lines connecting content and the program goals. Development through the psychomotor domain is represented by dotted lines among cognitive, affective, and psychomotor development areas. So it starts with your content goals, which are physical fitness, motor development, rhythm and dance, aquatics, games, and sports. Then it goes to the program goals, which is affective, psychomotor, and cognitive. And then it goes the aim of physical education, a physically educated individual. And the statement and the purpose will be self-actualization. Litigation. Much has been and can be written about the impact of litigation on the guarantee of full educational opportunity in the United States. The most prominent of cases which has served as an important precedent for civil litigation was Brown v. Board of Education, Topeka, Kansas, in 1954. This case established that the doctrine of separate but equal, quote unquote, in public education resulted in segregation that violated the constitutional rights of black individuals. Two landmark cases also had a heavy impact on the provision of free, appropriate public education for all children with disabilities. The first was the class action suit of the Pennsylvania Association for Retarded Children versus Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in 1972. And that's taken out of quote. Now it is considered individuals with intellectual disabilities. So we don't use the R word, but if you look at past history and tenses, many times they use the word retarded instead of intellectual disability. So equal protection and due process clauses associated with the Fifth and 14th Amendment served as the constitutional basis for the court's rulings and agreements. The following were among the ruling or agreements in the case. Labeling a child as mentally retarded, or now what we would say is intellectually disabled, or a child with an intellectual disability, or denying public education or placement in a regular setting without due process or hearing violates the rights of the individual. All individuals with intellectual disabilities are capable of benefiting from a program of education and training. Mental age may not be used to postpone or in any way deny access to a free public program of education and training. And having undertaken to provide a free, appropriate education to all its children, a state may not deny. And in the context of this book, and what we want to focus on is using the term intellectual disability. And so if you hear someone say the R word, or if somebody says mentally retarded, then you just want to tell them that the DSM, or the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, has been updated a long time ago, and we don't use that anymore. But I just wanted to kind of bring that to your attention, because sometimes you will read text, and some of the articles, when you get into the research in the course, you will see that they use that word. Okay. So in summary, what did we learn? Well, we learned that adapted physical activity is similar to adapted physical education. It's similar to adapted sport. We use these terms to help educators define what we're going to teach. For example, if we're teaching adapted physical education, that means we must be in the education setting. If we're teaching adapted physical activity, it could be in the collegiate, it could be in your community, such as Miracle League. It could be at I Can Do It, You Can Do It program, where people are over the age of 21. So basically, if you're 3 to 21, it's going to be probably adapted physical education. We serve individuals in high school and at the college level, so we get to see individuals from the ages of 3 to 21. In our other experiences, for our field experiences, the Miracle League, or if you go to the Special Olympics fall games, you'll see people with that are older, so you'll be working in an adapted physical activity setting. As you see here, this is some of the games that we play in lab. We always try to find small groups, and we always try to do basic skills such as running, jumping, and maneuvering, and holding on, and doing a lot of different group stuff. So adaptive physical activity is really fun. We do a lot of dance, we do a lot of fitness, we do a lot of sports, we do a lot of manipulative skills, locomotor skills. Obviously we have our swim lab, which is on Tuesdays. And here we have our Tuesday group. This is their first year at our university. So if you see these people now, they're going to be about 8 years older. So here's a different group. These are a little bit older folks, so you probably won't see most of these individuals. Most of these individuals here have phased out of the educational programs, meaning that they don't receive any educational services or physical education, which means that they rely on occupational therapists, physical therapists, and any type of therapist that might help them physically, socially, or cognitively. And so you're going to get the chance to do these activities in the gym, as you saw before, and I'll go ahead and show you it now. And as I told you before, we have our swim as well. And so, typically I like to set us up with questions to get to know your mentee or the people that we'll be working with. For Tuesday, you'll be working with these little guys, and some of them are getting older. So you're going to have some fun with these little guys. And then you'll be swimming. So this is what our swim class looks like. We generally all wear flotation devices. We warm up just like we're doing here. We start with very low progressions, and then we go from small to big. So we start with warm-ups outside the pool, and then we go to warm-ups inside the pool, and I'll show you that here. So we start kicking and splashing, finally get into the pool, and then after that we go through a 5-minute lap swim. So everyone will do some preliminary skills such as blowing bubbles, bobbing the head, pushing and pulling the side of the pool, and then we'll begin our swim. And so our swim is a little bit different than our gym, and so depending on the lab you're in, it'll be different. The swim is very structured, and the gym is a little bit less structured because there's a lot more going on. The gym, obviously, you can do cardio training, you can do nutrition, you can do fitness, you can do sport, and you got those four things you can do. But when you're in the pool, you're basically looking at swim skills only. So you have to be very structured for the swim program. For the PE program, you can have a little bit more variety. You can add in sport, you can add in yoga, you can add in balance, you can add in agility, cardiorespiratory training. So it's really kind of up to you and what you decide as a group or what you decide as teachers to teach and plan your students. So that's basically it. And as far as who you're going to be working with or who you're going to be planning for, we'll figure that out in lab, and this is just kind of your introduction to adaptive physical activity, and hope you enjoyed.